So now we're talking about lipids. So these are the second group of organic compounds that we will discuss in chapter 2. So lipids also, similarly to the carbohydrates, lipids will contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And the carbon to hydrogen ratio is going to be 1 to 2, which is similar to what we saw with the carbohydrates. However, there's a lot less oxygen in lipids as compared to the ratio we see in the carbohydrates. So remember, from carbohydrates, we have a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio when we're talking about carbon to hydrogen to oxygen ratio. In lipids, we do see a 1 to 2 carbon to hydrogen ratio, but the oxygen is going to be a lot less. So you have a much higher ratio of carbon to hydrogen atoms for the lipids. Lipids may also contain other elements, so you may see some small quantities of phosphorus, nitrogen, or sulfur. Some example lipids, or some lipids that we commonly see, we have fats, oils, and waxes. Those are all examples of lipids. And typically, lipids are going to be insoluble in water. So, this is representative. If you go and take some oil and you drop it in a glass of water, the oil is going to form a bubble. It doesn't dissolve in the water. So that's what we mean that lipids are typically insoluble in water. We do have, and because the lipids are insoluble in water, and we do have to have lipids be transported throughout the body, there's going to be special transport mechanisms for lipids in the blood. And this becomes really important when we talk about lipid digestion. So in anatomy and physiology too, this may be brought back up. Okay, but typically lipids are not soluble in water. And this goes back to the polarity. So if you remember when we talked about polar and nonpolar covalent bonds, nonpolar covalent bonds are typically hydrophobic. So they don't like water, okay? So that becomes important, and we will discuss that a little bit later on as well. So the importance of lipids, there are quite a few different functions of lipids in the human body. They are going to be very important components of all cells. When we talk about, and we will talk about phospholipids later on in this video. We'll also talk about the phospholipid bilayer when we talk about the cell membrane. So they are essential components of cells. We have to have them. Lipids serve as important energy reserves. So carbohydrates, and specifically glucose, we talked about glucose being needed to form ATP. Carbohydrates are an important energy component. I mean, we have to have carbohydrates in order for energy to be produced in the body. We have to have glucose. Lipids also are important energy reserves. Okay, so you think about like fat storage. Fats can be broken down to provide energy, and actually, lipids provide roughly about twice as much energy as carbohydrates do when you're talking like gram for gram. And that's why when you look at, and if you're into nutrition and you look at macros and things like that, the fat components and how much fat is required in your diet is based on this caloric value. So typically, lipids can provide more energy than carbohydrates do. Okay. Also, as far as body weight is concerned, so we talked about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates only made up about 1.5% of human body weight. In humans, lipids normally account for 12 to 18% of total body weight. And that's usually for adult men. Adult women, that's a little bit higher. 18 to 24 is normal amounts of lipids in adult women. And we are not able to synthesize all of the lipids that our body needs. So there's a lot of fatty acids that we may need that we have to get through our diet. So you cannot have a completely fat-free diet. That can be very unhealthy because we do have some fatty acids that we have to get um, through our diet. Okay, so humans must obtain some fatty acids from the diet. Uh, there are several different functions that lipids have in the body. So, in addition to energy and in addition to being parts of the cell membrane, uh, lipids can also serve as chemical messengers. For example, the chemical messengers, those are hormones. So, for example, steroids are a lipid, and we have specific steroid hormones. For example, estrogen and progesterone, testosterone, those are all steroid hormones. We talked about components of cellular structure, and those are the structural lipids that we have to have in order to form the specific cellular components, not just the cell membrane, but also within the cell. There are specific structures that require lipids. Okay, and then some examples of important lipids. We have cholesterol. Cholesterol we have to have in the body. We have to have cholesterol in order to form certain steroid hormones. We also have to have cholesterol within the normal cellular makeup, and we will discuss that more when we get to the next chapter. Phospholipids are an important part of the cell membrane, and then glycolipids are also important. And again, we'll talk about these more in more detail when we get to the structure of the cell. Okay, so fatty acids. Fatty acids they form these long chains. Okay, so if you remember, organic compounds must have carbon, and that carbon is going to form a carbon backbone. And these fatty acids are these long chains, these carbon chains that have hydrogen coming off of them. And then you can see, make sure I have my pen. You can see all the carbon backbone here, and then you have the hydrogens coming off. Oops. You have the hydrogens coming off, and then you also see the oxygen. Remember, much smaller carbon to oxygen ratio. So typically a 1 to 2 ratio carbon to hydrogen, which we see here in this image, and then a much smaller amount of oxygen. Okay, so in the fatty acids, so you have this long tail that's got the carbons and the hydrogens, and this is going to be hydrophobic. Okay, so the tail is hydrophobic. We see those nonpolar covalent bonds. And then, whereas the head, I'm going backwards here, but the head has the carbon and the oxygen and the hydrogen. This is what we call a carboxyl group, and it is polar in nature. If you remember when I talked about polarity, polarity you typically see sort of a bending in the chemical bonding. And so the carboxyl group at the end of this fatty acid chain, it is a polar covalent bond, and it is going to be hydrophilic, so it likes water. Okay, the hydrocarbon tail is hydrophobic, does not like water. The carboxyl head is hydrophilic, and it does like water. Okay, and you may have heard the term saturated versus unsaturated. And this comes from the number of hydrogens that are bound to carbons in that fatty acid tail. So if you have a saturated fatty acid, it means that all of these bonds between the carbon backbone, all of these bonds are filled up. So you have as many hydrogens as you possibly can um, in this or attached to that carbon chain. Okay, whereas unsaturated, you don't have and what we see why we don't have as many hydrogens as we possibly could is because there ends up being a double bond between two of the carbons in the carbon backbone. So we don't have all of the hydrogens that we could possibly have. So it's not saturated. So that's what we refer to as unsaturated fat. So saturated fats typically are solid at room temperature, whereas unsaturated fats are typically liquid at, I said body temperature, at room temperature. So saturated fats are typically solid at room temperature. Unsaturated fats are typically liquid at room temperature. So you think about like um, lard or bacon fat. After you get finished cooking bacon, the bacon fat will harden in the skillet. That is a saturated fatty acid. Whereas unsaturated fatty acid like olive oil, things like that, those are going to be liquid at room temperature. So that's an unsaturated fatty acid. Then you do have some things where you may go into the grocery store you may have heard the term hydrogenated. So hydrogenated is where you have an unsaturated fat, so it's going to be liquid at room temperature, but we want it to be solid. Okay, so they force that double bond between the two carbons. They force a hydrogen in there. That's where the term hydrogenated comes from. And then we end up, instead of something being liquid at room temperature, we end up with something being solid because we have now turned an unsaturated fat into a saturated fat. It has been hydrogenated. That's where you hear the term trans fats. An example I like to use is peanut butter. So you have natural peanut butter. If you go and get natural peanut butter in the grocery store, typically there's a liquid oily layer at the top. Okay, well, that's normal. Whereas if you get just regular peanut butter that's not natural, or I say regular peanut, you get the not natural peanut butter, it's all going to be solid. So it's been hydrogenated. Okay, so that's the difference there. Okay. See if there's anything else I want to say about the fatty acids. Primary function of fatty acids is going to be an energy source. Okay. And then glycerides. So we have different types. We have monoglycerides, diglycerides, and triglycerides. And so where that term comes from is that now we have a fatty acid. Okay, so a fatty acid chain, we can see that here over in the blue. That's a fatty acid chain, but now it's attached to a glycerol head. Okay, so if you have a monoglyceride, it's glycerol plus one fatty acid. If you have a diglyceride, it's glycerol plus two fatty acids. And then a triglyceride is glycerol plus three fatty acids. And these are important energy sources as well. We also see glycerides forming insulation in the body. You think about like the fat, subcutaneous fat. We see triglycerides there, and so insulation is important, and physical protection as well. The subcutaneous fat, in addition to being an insulative property, it also has a protective property. Okay, so we see um, these glycerides to in fat deposits, and they have to be broken down in order for our body to be able to use the fatty acids and to be able to be used as an energy source. I'm going to have to stop here because I have a 15-minute limit on these videos, and I will continue with the lipids in another video.